Now, Mexico City is a very family-friendly place. I think this is not always well known, especially by travelers from Canada and the US who may be less familiar with Mexico in general. But there really is a lot for kids to do in Mexico City. So the first thing to do with kids in Mexico City is to go to the Kids Museum. It is what I would call both a cultural and scientific interactive experience. And so they have a lot of things for kids to do. They have sensory activities. They have interactive exhibits where kids can play with water, shapes, can simulate cooking, artwork, etc. And basically the entire thing is geared towards children playing and having fun while learning. 10 out of 10, great time. You can certainly spend the day there and your kids will not be bored. The second place that is a must-see for people with kids in Mexico City is Chapultepec Park, a large, similar to Central Park, so a large park in the middle of the city. And what makes Chapultepec so special is that they have a huge zoo, which is free, so you don't have to pay to get in. Very popular with local families and also tourists. And kids get to see a variety of animals. Because it's free, you can go in, see some things. If the kids are tired, leave, take a break, come back, etc. It's very flexible in that way. The third one is probably not something that you would typically associate with traveling with kids, but is definitely something that I recommend. And that is trying the street food. Now, kids who are picky may not be into, say, tacos with guacamole, but there is a lot for kids to try. A lot of fruits and vegetables. So you cut up cucumber, pineapple, papaya, strawberries, delicious, of course. You can also find freshly made potato chips, which my son was really into, and nuts throughout the streets of Mexico City. And finally, my personal favorite, juice bars. And so there are these little kiosks all over Mexico City where you can walk up, order some fresh juice, and they freshly squeeze it on the spot. This one was certainly a hit with our kids. The next tip would be stay in the Roma and Condesa neighborhoods. Those are the neighborhoods in Mexico City that are probably the most family friendly. And so they're not overly touristy, but at the same time, they are safe, walkable, and have parks scattered throughout the neighborhoods. So you can take your kids to the playground. It's a great opportunity to meet local kids and local families. The playgrounds are safe, they're elaborate, there's a lot to do, and just nice, peaceful, fun places to stay. The next one is another museum. So Mexico City obviously is famous for its museums. It's the Chocolate Museum. The museum itself is rather small. It talks about the history of chocolate making in the area. Not a ton to see there, but the cafe and restaurant at the end is certainly the hit. They have really good chocolate cakes and also homemade hot chocolate as well, which is delicious. They have both the sweet and the savory variety, so you can try the chili hot chocolate. And finally, the last tip has to do with when you travel to Mexico City. We deliberately chose to travel to Mexico City during Day of the Dead festivities. This is an annual celebration that takes place around the time of Halloween and All Saints Day, so end of October, beginning of November, which just happens to be when our family loves to travel anyway. So definitely go to Mexico City during that time. It's a huge party. There were fairs throughout the streets, cotton candy, activities, shows, people dressed in costume, opportunities for getting your face painted, lots of culture and tradition mixed in with just the typical party vibe of a street festival. And it's also a great time of year because it's not too hot. It's the shoulder season, and so you don't have to deal with oppressive heat and crowds. And of course, a bonus tip for you. Visit the Zócalo, which is the main square or plaza in the heart of Mexico City's tourist district. As soon as we arrived there, I knew we had made the right decision not staying in that neighborhood. It is quite overwhelming. It's crowded. Some of the streets just off of the Zócalo are not the nicest. They're a little dingy, and there are a lot of shops and crowds of people hanging out in the street. Not a great place to stay with kids. But the square itself is great as a place to go and take in the culture of Mexico City. They have a lot of events, cultural activities, etc., that take place in this square. When we were there, they just happened to have an indigenous food and craft market. My kids loved it. They tried some new foods that they hadn't tried before. We looked at some arts and crafts. We tried some different types of juices. And of course, there's a beautiful cathedral there as well that you can visit. If your kids have the stamina for it, you can go inside. And if not, you can admire it from the Zócalo itself. So let me know in the comments below. These are just a few of the must-dos and must-sees related to Mexico City, in my opinion, based on our family's trip. But I know the city has a ton to offer, so I'd love to hear what your experiences were in Mexico City. And if you went with your kids, what you did to make sure that they had a great time. Thanks again for joining. See you soon. Take care.